Hello and welcome to my video today. I'm going to be working on ambient lighting on my Fisker Ocean. If you remember back earlier in the year, I did a video on how to modify the existing ambient lights, which are white on the Fisker Ocean. I was able to get it to do red and blue using some vinyl tubing. However, it is kind of limited in what you can do. If you want to change your colors, you have to remove the tubing, so not the best solution for that. However, I have been looking into LED streamer lights that I actually have installed on my Tesla Model 3. This is very similar to that, and it is powered by USB. I also have seen other versions that are powered by the 12-volt power in the car. So it's up to you which way you want to power it, either by the low voltage USB or a little bit higher voltage on the 12 volt. And in addition, there are two main ways I've seen of doing ambient lights in the Fisker Ocean. One method is using basically fiber optic tubing, where the light shows through the tubing at one end and goes all the way to the other end, and then you just mount that tubing in the vehicle itself. This one is slightly different, where it is an LED light strip and you will embed that into areas of the vehicle, and I'll show you that later. So two different ways of doing it, not necessarily better one way or the other, but I do feel that the LED version offers much more flexibility as far as changing the colors and patterns versus the tube version. So let me get started with this right now. All right, so here are the items that I purchased. I'm assuming that you have a 12-volt extension cord from the back of the car. There's the outlet on the right-hand side of the cargo area, and you need about a 10-foot cable for that to go up to the front of the car. And I've been doing this in several videos now where I have things powered by this outlet, and it's very flexible because you can set a number of devices using it. You can use splitters and all different ways of getting power to multiple devices. So I'm assuming you have that 12-volt extension to the passenger seat. And then what you'll need is a USB cable to run from that location to the front of the center console, and that's what I have here. This is just a normal USB-A extension cable, 6 feet long. I got it in black so it blends in well with the car, and I'll show you how that works. Then I bought two different kits because I want to do a fairly extensive amount of ambient lighting on the vehicle. This smaller kit here is for the two rear doors, and since the rear doors are further away from the front doors and the dashboard area, I decided to do that in two kits. So this is going to be the rear, and then this kit is going to be the front of the car. So basically the doors, the center console, dashboard area is all done by this one. And it's the same manufacturer, so the parts are interchangeable between them. So you could use some of the LED streamers from this one and use it with this kit, and that's what I plan to do. So I'll explain more of that in detail when I show the car. So let me open up this box and explain what we have inside. On the top, we have the LED streamer itself, and it is fairly thin, about 1 millimeter thick and a couple millimeters long. And then this will fit in between sections of the trim. And the area that is the white section here is the LED itself. So the light will shine through that light portion, and the black portion is what gets embedded in the car. So basically when it's installed, you'll just see the light section shining through. This one happens to be a, if I'm not mistaken, a 43-inch version. There are two of them in this box. I'll separate those out. and they are attached to these extension cables. I'm gonna just separate it right now and move those out of the way, since I am going to be using a different size for the rear of the car. This is the USB power and also controller. So this controls the LEDs, and you'll be able to use either an app or the remote control that comes in the box to change the colors and patterns. So this is what we'd be connecting to the 12-volt power in the front passenger seat area. So basically it has a cable attached to it, and it splits out, and then it goes to these extension cables. And these extension cables should be long enough to route to both sides of the car. So for example, this one will go to the right rear door, and this will be going to the left rear door. And I'll be able to hide this underneath the carpeting and trim areas to get to the locations that I need them to go to. So fairly simple. We also have in the box a trim tool which lets you bend the trim back so that you can insert the LED strip into those crevices. Now, some locations you may need to have double-sided tape attached to the LED strip. There's also a USB-A to USB-C adapter in case you want to use a USB plug that has that connection. We also have some tubing. We have the remote control. So the remote control has a number of different things. It has power on it, auto. It has a bunch of different brightness controls and other settings. So I'll be experimenting when I install it. It has a lot of pre-built things. I think it has a rainbow feature, blocks, and other things here that you can set up. And then you can do some timing, and I guess there's also some music patterns that will respond to your car's speaker system. So this has a battery in it. If you can see, it uses a CR2025 or 2032. And let's see if that is in here. Let me open this up. So yeah, there's no battery. Did they include one in here? No battery. Oh, that's kind of a bummer. All right, so I'm gonna have to get a battery, but you know what? I do have a bunch of batteries around here. So let's see if this one will fit. There we go. And then insert that, and then I have power to my remote control. So what else do we have in the box? We have a little pamphlet here with the user manual information. A nice little full color instruction guide for installation, and a QR code for getting the app. So I'll be downloading that for my phone. One thing I want to say is that I'll be using, since I'm using two kits, and I'm gonna see if the app can control both of these devices at the same time, or I may have to switch between the two. Not sure how that works yet. So one thing I want to make sure I got is two kits from the same manufacturer so that they would be broadly compatible. So let's move this out of the way and open the next box. This is going to be very similar to the other one, just slightly bigger because it has more connections. So as you can see, it still has the same USB controller here, but instead of just having two, it has 6 different connectors here. So a whole bunch of these, and then each one of these has extension cables. I think these are all about 80 inches long, so fairly long. Hopefully that should be long enough to reach all the areas that I need to reach in the car. And then there's all the different LED streamers here. There are, as far as I'm aware of, there's a large one right here. I think this one is 53 inches long. Then I have a bunch of these, 4 of these that are I think these are 29 inches. I forgot what it is. I'll have to look on the thing. And then there's one last one here that is only about 15 inches. I don't think I'm going to be using this one, so we'll see. One thing is I miscalculated the number of streamers that I needed for this kit. I actually do need one more streamer that is this long. So I thought I would be able to use one for my Tesla, but it ends up being the connectors here don't match up. It's a smaller connector than this one is. So I wasn't able to reuse that LED strip. So I'm gonna have to buy one more of these so that I have enough to do the full kit. So what else we got? So yeah, we have the same controller here. We have the 3M double-sided tape. We have the trim tool, and we have the instructions and the USB adapter. So yeah, identical kit as the other one. It just has more LED strips. For this project today, I recommend getting these tools and supplies: pair of work gloves, scissors. In addition to the trim tool that's included with the kit, I recommend using a straight trim tool like this one to help press in the LED strips. This is optional. This is what I use for marking the ends of the LED strips where I need to trim them, so some painter's tape comes in handy. I also have a roll of gaffer tape, and this is for securing the wiring in areas where you want to stay put so it doesn't move around. And I also used it in areas like the door frame where I don't want the wires to accidentally get cut by the metal, so I put this over it so the wires will stay protected. I also recommend some electrical tape for putting around some of the connections. There are some bare wires in this kit, so I recommend using some electrical tape to wrap up all those connections and wires so it's just tidier and stays clean and a little bit more protected from anything getting on it. So that's everything I recommend for this project today. Let's go on to the next step. I've set up the LED lights so that it roughly matches up with how I'm going to install it in the car. So back here we have the rear doors. So that is the right rear door and the left rear door, along with some extension. And then that is the USB controller right there. Then I have a USB extension cord going up to the other USB controller. And then this is going to be the center console left and right. This is going to be the front left door and the front right door. And then up here, we're going to have the dashboard right side and the dashboard left side. So that's going to start in between where the center screen is. So you're not going to see where those two are connected. And I kind of wanted to do it this way since I wanted to have the lights move out from the center outwards. So what it'll do is the lights will start in the middle, then they'll go left and right, and then continue with the left door and the right door. So it'll look, I think, more symmetric. Another option is, instead of doing the shorter 20 something length inch ones up here, is to do one 55-inch piece. You could do just one like that and just have it go across the whole dash, and it probably would save you some money as far as just doing one kit for the front and one kit for the rear, and then you wouldn't need to get that extra 44-inch one that I was talking about that I'm going to need for this side, because right here this one is only a 14-inch and it's not long enough to do the center console. I need this other one here is also a longer piece, so these can be trimmed. So I'm going to have to trim the door panel ones on the front and the center console ones. I'm not going to have to trim the rear door ones or the dashboard ones. Those are going to be fine the length that they're at. So just want to give you a visualization of how this will look like when it's installed in the car. All right, let's go inside the car and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here's the existing ambient lighting in the Fisker Ocean. I've modified mine so that they are red. So here's the dashboard. There's a component on the right here. There's a component in the middle, and then there's also one on the left. So there are 3 pieces for the dashboard, as well as underneath the console here. And then also on the door handles, front and rear. So there's a couple things you can do here. You can turn off the existing ambient light if you want to use the new lighting, or you can have it in conjunction. Not sure how that will work depending on the colors. I'm guessing since I have red, that's usually what I use for my interior ambient colors. So I could use the existing and have it work with the new ambient lighting that I'm going to be installing. Or I could just turn it off and just use the new lighting. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do this. As far as the door panels go, I wanted to show you that. I have 2 different lengths of the LED. One is 29 and the other is 43 or 44 inches. And what I found out is the shorter one here, if you try to install it from this side, basically it's going to go in this panel here. So between the upper panel and this fabric panel is where we're going to be inserting the LED. So it's going to go basically starting right here. However, the shorter piece that I have only goes to about here. So that's why I was not happy about using the shorter pieces. Now, if I use the longer piece, and I have that starting roughly here, and it goes all the way to the end, and then I can just trim off the excess at the corner right here. So it will give a full-length LED lighting from here all the way to the end, which I think looks better. And might as well spend a little bit more on this to get it to do that. As far as the center dash goes, I mentioned about using 2 different pieces. So we would be using 2 of the shorter lengths, and then that would be, I would have one starting here and then the other on the mirror going that way. So it would be like that, and then it would go underneath the main upper dash here, along here, across to here. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. If you want to attach the LED strip to the upper dash, you could do that going all the way across. It's got a little bit of a lip right here and then bends and goes all the way down to the end. So you could install it right underneath this right here. Or what I'm thinking of doing is using this plastic piece right here, the silver one, and having it start at this corner here and going all the way to the center, and then the other center going all the way to the end. And by doing that, I think it will look better because it will have the LED coming right here. So when you close the door, you're going to have the LED strip here and here are kind of matching the same height. I think that would look better, more consistent, having the LED start up here and start under here. Another option for the door is that you could run it inside here between the fabric and the lower plastic piece and have it go along here. The only problem is it kind of has an issue is going around this here. It's too much of a curve to go down. So if you did the tube version of these ambient lighting strips, the tube is much more flexible than the LED. The LED is flexible side to side, but you can't have it flex along this axis. So you can't bend it from the top. So I would say these LED strips are better for straight runs, such as this, because this is pretty straight going through here, not a problem. But when you have these issues of these tight turns like this, got your curve here and going through here, and then this part here would be kind of problematic since it is kind of open. So I'm thinking that I'm just going to be doing the upper one and leaving it at that. I think it's going to be simpler, and also I think it's going to look better because I think the light going along here is going to kind of interfere with the handle, and it's going to look like basically two strips, a strip up here and then a strip down here. It's kind of up to you. If you want to do it that way, go ahead. In fact, if you really want to get fancy, you could do two strips. You can do a strip on the top and a strip on the bottom. As far as the dashboard goes, I mentioned, yes, you could do one up here and then one down here. So those are two good locations for running it. And then lastly, along the center console, I'm going to be running an LED strip from the very front and then go all the way to the back here where the armrest ends. And then that's also another one where I need to use a longer 44-inch piece so that it looks better. Because if you do the shorter 29-inch ones, it's going to end right here, and I don't know if it's going to look as good. But if you do want to save some money and just do one kit and not do the back windows, you can get away with doing the one with the 6 connectors, and you could probably do the whole front of the car, no problem. And that one only runs like 60 some odd bucks. So pretty affordable for doing this as far as a custom ambient lighting setup. The back is going to be relatively easy. I'm going to be having the light come up this area here, and it's going to start in this corner, and then it's going to go all the way across to here. So that's basically it as far as the locations go. What's going to be tricky is on the doors, I'm going to have to route the wiring so that it goes through these areas here. I'm going to have it go through either attaching it to the hinge area here, and there's also some wiring that goes in this rubber tube. So I'm going to see how well that works, if I can just attach it to the outside of that and not have to go inside, because it's going to be relatively difficult to take apart all the trim to run the wiring through that harness, but I'll see how it goes when I do the installation. Here's the right rear door, and we have the 29-inch section of the LED, and I'm going to start at this corner and then install it all the way to that corner. You can use the plastic pry bar here to loosen up this so that it can fit in there. All right, so as you can see, it fits nicely in this seam, and you just have to push it in so it's just barely sticking out so that the LED will shine through. And it's plenty wide enough that this will stay in place. And the nice thing is you don't need to use any of the 3M double-sided tape for the doors, because it fits in there very nice just with the friction fit. And as you can see, it goes almost to the edge here, about a ½ inch or so. I'm not really too concerned with that. I think it looks pretty good. All right, so you can see the LED strip here. The wiring I tucked in this groove right here. Then I had it go in between this trim over here. And then I had it go right in this area. I have it go across here. And I put some gaffer tape underneath here so that the metal isn't sharp, so I could bring the wire underneath this weather stripping, and then I have it going all the way down here, and then I have it coming out the floor trim and then it goes towards the under seat area here where I plugged it into the USB port. Ideally, the best way to do this would be to remove the entire door card, so you'd have access to the inside area here where you could route the wire through this grommeted area here, through this rubber pipe. It would come out this pipe inside the door. You'd have to take apart this whole trim. I could not do that right now. I haven't looked into the detail, and I couldn't snap this part off. I couldn't find the right clips for that. But in any case, the proper way to do it would be to remove this whole panel here, so you'd have access to the opening where this grommet leads to, and then you would route that wire also the same place, route it down. So we have the wire coming from the door. It gets routed to this location right here, and this is where it attaches to the USB connector right here, and that will be located in this area here under the seat. Now we will connect the left door, which is over on this side, and we'll run the wire to the left of the car. So I routed the USB cable across here underneath this floor mat all the way to this side here. I have it come out. I removed the door threshold here so I can get better access to this panel. And as you can see, the wires here, it goes underneath, goes along the weather stripping up to this area here. Then I have it cross, then I have it go up the weather stripping, through here, up in this corner, and it then gets installed starting here, and you can see the white LED starting at this point, and then it goes all the way along to the end. So there's plenty of wire to reach the left door from under the right seat. So that was one thing I was concerned about, but that is definitely a thing. It does work with that. And like I said, preferably the best method would be to remove the door panel and to remove this whole side piece here and route the wire from inside the door. I'm gonna have some light in here. So inside the door, route it through that rubber grommet, through that rubber tube, and through the other grommet inside the car, and then come out here and then go straight down and then go back that way. So it's probably the preferred way to do it if you want the cleanest look to it. However, this works fine for my demonstration right now. Also, when you close the door, you'll see that the wire bends up and away from the hinge. So there's no issue of the wire getting caught on anything. And here I'm testing the light on the rear doors. You can see that one and that one. And right now it's, I guess, just the default pattern. Obviously it shuts off when the car shuts off, which is definitely an energy saver. And you don't have to do anything special with that since it's connected to the 12-volt outlet in the rear of the car, which shuts off when the car is locked also. And here's a view from the other angle. You can see both doors lit up. For running the USB cable from the back of the passenger seat to the front center console, you just need to pull on this trim panel. It unsnaps. There's about a half a dozen clips that hold it in place. And then it's pretty easy. Just take the end that's going to connect to the USB controller and place that up near the front. And then what you're going to do is just push this inside the trim and try to avoid where the clips go into the panel and just route that as best you can. There's some areas where there's crevices. Try to do that so it stays out of the way. And then when you're done, take the end and push it all the way through here, and it will go through the side. I already have another wire that's in here that is powering my Apple CarPlay device, so there is plenty of room in there. And then when you have that all situated, you can then push in the clips all along here. So this panel goes back into its original position, and then your wiring is hidden. Now I can take the USB from the front. This is the extension, and I'm going to attach that to this here. I'm going to put some links in the video description with different types of connectors. If you're not having anything else connected to the 12-volt extension, you can just use a single USB adapter that plugs into here that has dual USB on it. And then you can attach that right here and then connect two USBs to it. I happen to have a multiple USB connector here where I'm going to be attaching my dash cam as well as the lights. So that's why I have 3 different devices hooked up to it right here. And once everything's connected, you can just push it all underneath and then start hiding all the wires. With the back seat done, I am ready to do the front. I have my USB with all the cables right here. The best place I can think about putting it is probably in this cubby area here. Although there may be a bunch of wires, eventually I may think about putting a cover over it or doing some sort of tidying up of the wires so they're not noticeable. But right now, I'm just going to put them in this area. If you can think of any other areas you'd like to put it in, go right ahead. There may be some room if you pull up some of these dash panels to stuff the wires in, but I haven't investigated that yet. So for the time being, I'm just going to be leaving the wires under here. And then from that area, I'm going to have the wires go out to the right side of the car for those items, and then the left side for those items. So I'm going to start working on that now. Oh, by the way, I labeled each of these extension cables so I know where everything goes. It's not really required, but it just makes it a little bit easier to know how to route the wires. I'm going to start on the doors first. All right, one thing I found that helps out is if you slide it into the corner, that may be a great way to get this started. So I will slide that in that way and then just pull it so that the end of this comes inside the corner, because the end of this does not bend very well. So we want to have this part here, it's about a 1/4 inch or so inside the corner so that it doesn't have any issues with bending or opening closing on the door. So I'm going to push that through. All right, I think I got this going here, so I'm just going to be sliding this along and pressing it in. It may be easier to use gloves, and then also probably not bad to have some trim tools to help press it down into the area between the two trim pieces. Just take your time. Once you get to the end here, this is going to be the trickiest part, is you're going to have to cut the LED strip right around this area here so that it doesn't stick out. You don't want to get caught on the edge. It could be a little sharp. So I would have it just inside this corner, so when you push it in, you're not going to catch on it. And supposedly you can cut anywhere along this LED. So that is the next part I'm going to work on. All right, so as you can see, I have it going all the way across, nice and even. And then if you look at the corner here, it is not going to affect anything. I kind of rounded it a little bit so it won't catch. So that's probably the best way of doing it, and it looks pretty clean. Next part is going to be routing the wire. Like I did on the rear doors, I'm going to go around this way, underneath this trim, and down to the weather stripping. I'm going to go across and attach to this side, and then go down. I'm going to go across. I think probably the easiest way is to go across the dash, lower dash area, all the way to the center console to connect to the USB there. One other tip that I would suggest doing is taking some electrical tape and wrapping around the bare wires here between the connector. And actually, I'm going to wrap all around the wires and the connector itself. So one strip here of the black electrical tape to keep this protected as much as I can. So here's an example of wrapping it in the electrical tape. And now I can mount it into this area here. And also, it's probably not a bad idea to put some electrical tape on this connector too. So we have the LED strip wire go through this trim area, underneath this piece of trim, down the weather seal, and then I have it coming out right here above the hinge. I bent the wire so when you close the door it bends upwards. I moved the weather seal out of the way and put a piece of gaffer tape there over the metal, and then routed the wire underneath it. And then I have the wire going underneath the dash panel here. There's some clips under here that you can place the wire in between the two sections so you can get it to go all the way across and then come out on this side here. And then I have it just pushed in this crevice, as you can see here, with the tool. And then I have the wire coming out right there, so it's not visible at all. And there you go. This will be covered right by the threshold panel right here. And no wires are visible on the inside of the car. All right, so the left door is done. It's always a good idea to test each one of these light strips after the installation to make sure everything is working. And as you can see, the LED is working all the way from the start until the end. So, pretty cool. For the dashboard area, I mentioned that I'm going to be using 2 of the 25-inch strips. I connected them with a piece of electrical tape in the center so that when I mount it in this area here, it's going to be like one long continuous strip, and it will be mounted like this with the white section pointing towards the driver. I am going to be using 3M double-sided tape on this. I forgot about that Since this area here is going to be where it's going to be attached to, I'm going to have to put the 3M double-sided tape so it adheres to the bottom of the plastic. So what I'm going to do is apply this to the area of the strip from the center all the way to the end. Actually, I don't need to go all the way to the end because I think it's going to be too long and I'm going to have to trim it, but not too bad because I think there's a lot of the 3M tape, so I can use a little bit extra if I need to. So that's the next thing I'm going to do is apply the tape, and then I'm going to locate this in the center here behind the screen and then push up on the double-sided tape all along this silver trim. So here is what the LED streamer looks like with the 3M double-sided tape installed. I have it going along here. Make sure you press down really firmly and let it sit for a bit. And as you can see here, I had some in the center. Since this area here, roughly about this section here, is not going to be attached to anything, I'm not going to worry about that. So if you wanted to, you could probably even start it around this area here. So that's up to you. So now I'm going to strip back the red plastic and start mounting it. Make sure to press on the 3M double-sided tape. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to line it up so that the front of it matches up with the thickness of the LED strip. So it should be pretty even all the way across. So just keep on pulling the red protective film off of it and then just kind of guide it along. And just keep pushing up on it. This 3M double-sided tape is pretty strong. I have one of these mounted on my Tesla for a couple of years now, and it is still very stuck into place, and I doubt that this would fall off anytime soon. So just like with the door, I'm going to have to trim this corner piece right here. So I'm going to put a piece of tape over where I think I'm going to cut it. I'm going to do it at an angle here, probably the same as before, because the way that this corner goes is the corner lifts up. So if I do it straight to this corner right here, it's most likely going to lift at a certain point. So I'm guessing it's probably best to do it just to around this area here, so that I think it'll do a nice clean cut, and it should work out pretty well. So let me cut that, and I'll then use the rest of the 3M tape and push this into place. All right, so here's a closer look at the area. Ends right there. So this goes straight through all the way to the center, and then it stops about there. So at this point, I'm going to take the tape off the other end and just apply that one all the way to that corner and do the same thing. Okay, we have the right side of the dash done. It is going all the way to the edge like I did the other side. And I have both of the power wires in the center. They're going to drop down so I can connect to the USB down below. We now have the streamer working. Very cool. And my plan was to have it so that the dash looks like it's extending to the door, and it is doing what it's supposed to do. So it looks like almost one continuous stream from the center out to the door on the left, and then I'm going to be doing the same on the right when I do the door on this side. All right, we have now installed the LED strip from the corner all the way to the end, and I trimmed it so it was like a nice beveled cut so you don't get caught on here. And now I'm going to route it through the door underneath the glove box. Well, no glove box, but what would be a glove box if there was one here. Underneath this area here and to the center console. Okay, so I have the wiring tucked into this corner here, going down to this location right here. I have it jumping across here. I have it underneath the weather seal here, of course using some gaffer tape to protect it. Then I route it down, and it goes underneath this panel right here, then comes right up here, and you can see it right here, and it connects to the USB in this area. And as you can see, we have the door lights working now. And now I'm ready for the last set of LED strips I'm going to install, and that's going to be for the center console. I'm going to have it start right under here, under the console trim, and I'm going to have it run all the way along here to the very back. I may or may not need the 3M double-sided tape. I know on this section of it, I probably don't need it because it's going to fit between these two trim pieces. However, from here to here, I think I'm going to need it, so I'm going to put the 3M tape on it just to be safe. And then I'm going to have to trim it at the end where the corner meets the end of the console. So this shouldn't be too bad. One thing I'm going to have to do is loosen this piece right here so I can slide the power through there, and then the power will go up to the USB up top. So plenty of room there. Okay, so I have the LED strip starting here, going all the way across, and it was a good idea to use the 3M double-sided tape. And then when it hits this area, it's just a friction fit all the way down to the end right here. So I am going to trim it right there. And now for the test. Connect the USB temporarily. And there we go. We have the full length of the LED starting here and going all the way to the back. I think that gives a really nice look, especially how it reflects on the plastic up above it and under the dashboard area. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other side of the center console. I'm not going to show that because it's exactly the same as this, so it's pretty easy. So that is it for installation. I'm just going to tidy up the wires up here. I'm probably going to use some twist ties and just straighten it up so it's not so haphazard looking. And eventually I'm going to try to find some sort of box that I can put all of those components inside of, so it's just a little bit better looking. But otherwise, you don't really notice that area anyway behind the screen, so it's not that big a deal for me. So, and if it does bother you, maybe you can find a way of tidying it up better than I did. And yeah, let me know in the comment section if you can think of a better way to hide those wires. All right, the system is now installed and I have it on right now. There are two ways to access the LED streamer lights in the vehicle. You can either use the remote control or the app on your phone. I'm going to go over the remote control at this point. Here we have the remote control. This is an RF remote and you can use it to control both of the kits in the car. The only problem is I have one under the dash and one under the seat. So in order to control both, I have to point it at one and then point it at the other to get it to work. So if you had both kits side by side, you could use the remote to control both of the kits at the same time. There's an on and off button here. However, when you get in the car, it automatically turns on, so that's not a problem. There's buttons up here for increasing brightness and decreasing brightness, and they also affect the speed of the movement on some of these patterns. The button right here, this one controls the colors, so you can cycle through the colors by pressing it like that, and you have 8 primary colors. Keep pressing it and you keep going through all of them. Then the one next to it is a 3-color display. Let me get that one going here. All right, so you can see that one. The one next to it is even more colors. And then there's an auto button, and the auto button will go through all of the different patterns that are on the system. So if you press it like that, it'll go through and cycle through a whole bunch of different things. So kind of like the random mode. Then we have some presets here for a number of different things. We have this one here. So let me press that. And that one is going to have the lights moving outward. If you press the one next to it, it's the same effect except the lights are moving inward. Then there is this button here. This one does like a line and it moves along from right to left. And if you press the other button next to it, it does the same pattern, just in the opposite direction. Then we have a rainbow button. And the one next to that is called building blocks. Next to that, we have this button here. Let's see what that does. And that does a number of different colors, like in a pattern. Very interesting. And then if we press the button next to it, it'll do the same thing in the other direction. All told, there are over 200 different patterns and millions of colors that can be created by this system. So it can be a little overwhelming. Let's keep on going on the buttons here. The M Plus button goes through a bunch of different presets, and you can just press it and it'll keep on going through different things. You got some strobing, you got all these different. So M minus just goes the other direction. The other button that we have right here is a countdown. I guess it's a 30-minute and a 1-hour countdown. Then we also have these little houses, S through S4, and those also look like a sort of preset. And then you can, each one of those does a different thing, so I'll press that. That's number 2. This is number 3. This one's number 4. Next, we have the bottom row here, and they all have little music symbols next to them. Those are 4 different patterns for the music response. So let's press one of those. So if I'm talking, you'll notice that the lights move according to my voice. It'll do the same thing for music. Let's do the second one. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Yep, so that one does a different design. Let's go to this one here. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, yep. So let's do the fourth one. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. So very cool. This remote control is pretty handy if you just want to do a quick change. For example, I want to do my favorite color. I like to do my interiors with red, and my ambient light that I modified is also red. So I could turn on the car's ambient lighting. It'll match this red, so it looks pretty good. So, yeah, so that's the remote control. The next thing we have is going to be the app. So let me get that started. They automatically pair with the app, so it's really handy. Unfortunately, I wish there was a way for you to group these. Even though there is a category called group, it doesn't do anything. And I contacted the company and they said that the kits can't be used together as a group. So unfortunately, these apps tend to be used by different companies, and some features work on some products and some features don't. So unfortunately, the grouping doesn't work for this product. So a little disappointing with that. Let's see, there's some other information. If you click on the main menu here, you can check the firmware. Pretty straightforward. So if you want to control the kit, let me go to the front one here. So you can go into settings. There are some things you can do in that area. Not really important. Most of the default settings are good. The rhythm, that's similar to the remote control that had the music. So it basically listens to music or sound and does an effect. So if I go to mood, and then you can tell what kind of sound pickup. You can use your phone or the device itself, and I'll use the device to do this. So testing, 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 1, 2, 3. So you can see it's running that way. So there are so many different patterns in here. So you can just flick to the right and just go through all the different patterns. There are so many in here. And that's just one type, this category called mood. There's also one called strip light, and you can go over to fireworks. There's a whole bunch in that one. And then there's DIY, you can make your own. One interesting thing you can control in here is the brightness. So you can turn the brightness, right now it's at 100%. You can turn it down. Let me turn it like halfway. You can see it's dimmer. Then you can go real low. And eventually it'll be, yeah, at that point it's super, super low. You can also affect the sensitivity, which means how it reacts to sound or music. So you can adjust that to however you like it. I just kind of have mine in that middle area. It seems to work fine. So that's rhythm. Favorites is where you can pick from all the millions of different colors here, and you can just click on it and then it instantly changes to that color. So very cool. And then you can also have it do the movements. Let's see. Oh, you can also control the intensity, the brightness. So right now it's like halfway, 1/4, real dim. So depending on how you like it, you can set that. So that is favorites. Scenes, things I haven't even looked at yet, but there's a whole bunch of different preset patterns in here you can play around with. There's scheduling. I haven't messed with that. I just leave mine to just the default, since the Fisker Ocean will turn on the lights when the car turns on. I don't have to worry about anything like that. Then there's an on-off button. You can just turn on and off. So there's a ton of different options here. There are so many different colors and patterns that I'm sure there's something that you will find that you like. So very interesting. In fact, I'm going to set it right now to go through the auto and just give you some samples of what it looks like, of the different patterns and lights that they're doing, the color modes. It is very, very cool. Well, I let that go. I can talk about the software for a long time, but I think that's about it for this video. This video is already long enough. I apologize for the length of it, but I want to be very detailed in the installation portion of this, because I know a lot of YouTube videos out there like to show the beginning and the end, and they don't necessarily show the middle of how things actually get done. So I pride myself in doing my videos in extra detail. And if it is a little on the slow side, feel free in my videos to run it at 1.5 or 1.75 speed if you need to. Makes it go faster, go right ahead. Very impressive. I think this is a very nice ambient light system for the Fisker Ocean. You can keep expanding this however you want. In fact, I'm going to order another kit, and I'm going to do the roof next. So I'm going to have 3 kits on my system. You can just do 1 if you want, or the nice thing is the link that I have for Amazon, you can customize it however you see fit, and then you can just get the light strips that you want to do for your vehicle. So if you just want to do the dash and the doors, you got that option. So I have the links in the video description. All right, so I think that's about it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.